when I was a kid,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't play outside. I couldn't really do what the general consensus of what children did. Like,
Mm-hmm.
my thinking was, if I can physically do it, why do it? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess I'll get into that. I was diagnosed with cerebral palsy at the age of 2. I'm confined to a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but watching box, it was it was less about the imaginative play for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was about the dynamic between Tony, Viv, and the Kings. And that's a testament to the creative people um, on the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to an episode of The Box Cutter, where we take apart an episode of Disney's Out of the Box to see if it still holds up. My name is Daniel, and my co-host for today is a fan of the show, a fan of this podcast, and host of the DJ Bob Show, Bob Runkel. How are you today, Bob?
How are you? So
I'm
good to be
excited.
here.
You've been doing this for almost a decade now, not just Out of the Box, but also other
Well,
shows such
more
as
than yeah, over a decade. Yeah.
over a decade, PB&J Otter. You've done stuff for Bear in the Big Blue House, and you know so many people that have worked on those shows. So, could you tell me though why you decided to start talking about these shows? What made you
Well,
want to start a
well,
podcast?
what you knew? I guess that's an interesting story, and it kind of
Mm-hmm.
gets glanced over when I do get interviewed. So I'll just say it. Before I started doing like this retro nostalgia type stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I was doing stuff that was like where I would interview punk rock bands and
Mm-hmm.
anything that was cool or trendy. And
Mm-hmm.
then I thought of like, what if I got the guy that played Bear on Burn the Big Blue House? And
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of like the first thing, and then that led me to a year later doing stuff for Box. When I knew that I wanted to do it, podcasting wasn't a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I wanted to be in some kind of media, radio. I knew I wanted to be in front of a microphone. I would
Mm-hmm.
DJ parties as a little kid. Like, I was that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I had started listening to Radio Disney a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a huge inspiration for me. And then eventually, there was this radio show on AOL called Radio KOL,
Okay.
and it was hosted by this weird British guy
Mm-hmm.
named DJ Rick Adams, and he was just like he would like give away prizes and do funny sketch comedy stuff, and I would call into that show every day for like 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it got to the point where like when you called in a lot, he would knight you. Like he would give you a name. And
Oh,
he
I see.
gave me the name DJ Bob.
Ah.
And that was 15 years ago now, and ever since then it stuck. I did a bunch of radio stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I worked for other stations, but then I got fired one time. So I didn't have anything. So
Mm-hmm.
one summer when I was bored,
Mm-hmm.
I just came up with the name The DJ Bob Show. I didn't know what it was going to be. I just had the name. I didn't know whether it was going to be video or audio or podcast. Podcasting wasn't even a thing yet. So it started out being 4 hours live every day,
Mm-hmm.
5 days a week. And then I started recording shows but then I started working for another radio station and they said, you know, you're not like you kind of get distracted. You're not really committed to the weekly schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you do a podcast so you can do it at your own time?
I see.
So that was 2014. So I've been doing the DJ Bob show for 11 years, but the podcast really has been 7 or 8. And I think I've really found my sweet spot in
Mm-hmm.
this area.
The whole thing of when I discovered Out of the Box back on Disney Plus, I was like, I just have so much to say about it, but there's no one to ever talk about it with. So that's kind of like I want to start a, I was thinking maybe I should do like reaction, like a YouTube channel where I react to the episodes. But then I was like, that's a little too complicated. But
And
then
that would have been copyright crazy, though.
yeah. And then
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just do a podcast and just talk about the show. Um, and I was thinking maybe I should do it this way, maybe I should do it that way. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just talk with people, even if they've never seen the show. I just want to.
I think that's a cool approach to get somebody that's of a different generation, even just to like,
Exactly. I want to show how good this show is, even if you're younger, older, have seen the show, haven't seen the show, how much the show still holds up in comparison to other shows that get recognition. Like everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, you didn't have a childhood if you don't know this dog, which is Blue's Clues, or you didn't have a childhood if you didn't watch these shows like Blue's Clues or Dora, or it's like okay, but like nobody that I knew growing up would ever talk
well,
about it.
let me tell you something.
Hmm.
So they were kind of bummed that they didn't get merchandise because everybody got a doll.
I thought they did get a doll though, like when they did their live tour.
So those dolls were made
Hmm.
by Joe Kovac,
Okay.
and Joe Kovac was the guy that played Bear on the tour.
Okay.
And they were, and Tony and Vivian were saying to him, like, all we get are video releases and pengs. That's all we get.
Hmm.
We get pengs with our logo on it. That's it.
Hmm.
So at the end of the tour, Joe comes in and he literally made them
Hmm.
dolls
Really?
as a gift, like a wrap gift, like well done on the tour.
That's so nice
So
of
that's
him.
that story.
Well, I mean, if Out of the Box was made now, I feel like Disney would more than likely want to capitalize it. Because you know how a lot of companies capitalize on the whole YouTube DIY 5 minute craft thing? I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure Out of the Box would have its own line of DIY crafts in store.
yeah, I know.
Or like little like cake mixes and things. That's how I feel. So I feel like would I want it to come back? Um, yes and no.
Me
Because
too.
if it came back, it wouldn't feel as genuine because Douglas Love, the creator of the show, based the show off of his books he wrote.
And he based it off of the idea of like you like the idea, you like the box more than the toy
Mm-hmm.
when you get it as a
Right.
kid.
Right.
So
You
yeah,
know. So yeah. So if they were to remake it, unless they get the correct people involved and get
I just feel like it's too. It,
Vivian, Tony, and Douglas as consultants for the show.
or
I
even if like they wrote episodes, like
right. If they
yeah.
were more if they were involved with the production of it, I'd feel more
No,
confident
but
in
I
a
don't
remake.
think they would want it any other way.
Mm-hmm.
Cause I know them very well, and box is like a sacred thing to them, like it is to us.
Right.
Um,
But I feel like it's kind of a thing that's kind of well, I guess necessary in this day and age where kids are growing up with technology, which isn't a bad thing because we live in a world where technology is all around us, and
I'm so grateful for it
and
because
and children are able to are picking up on things at a faster rate. but they're forgetting about the simplicities of imagination. If they remade out of the box, number one, they'd have to get Tony and Vivian and Douglas Love. And number two, it would have to be the right set of people. It can't just be anyone that's written for Disney. It has to
Yeah,
be
no, it has
people
to.
who have, a have worked for other children's programming or have, degrees or something with children's
Well,
studies.
you'd be surprised in the work that I do, because
Mm-hmm.
I interview all the writers and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many people
Mm-hmm.
in children's television now
Right.
that are connected to Fox.
Really.
Everybody knows each other, especially in New York, because that was so like everybody knows each other in
Mm-hmm.
that circle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like,
because it was in Kaufman Astoria, which is where Sesame Street is, and Sesame Street is one of the biggest
yeah,
children's productions.
but not even that. Like everybody, like for example,
Mm-hmm.
um, the for the third season of Buck, they brought on this guy
Mm-hmm.
to produce it, and his name is Rick Fernandez.
Okay.
Before Buck, he helped develop Bear
Mm-hmm.
in the Big Blue House,
Mm-hmm.
and before that, he was working at Nick Studios Orlando for like 5 years. So like he knows kids television. Like
Right.
all these people know kids and know what they
Mm-hmm.
want to see and
Mm-hmm.
know. So everybody knows each other. So it wouldn't be so hard to
Right.
find people that are associated with it. Like in terms of bad reboots, I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna go out on a limb and just tell you one straight up:
Mm-hmm.
the Magic School Bus reboot for
Oh
Netflix.
yeah, that's one example of a show that was a quick cash grab.
And I
What?
love the new version of the theme song.
Mm-hmm.
I love the production. But other than that,
Mm-hmm.
no,
Right.
no, just
Right.
no.
I mean, good reboots are, well, like you said, Blue's Clues. That I take your word for it, Blue's Clues. Also, the '90s version of Zoom was a reboot,
Oh, I love that show so much.
and yeah, I just feel like if they're going to do it, they need to have people who were part of the original production, to be consultants of the show, as well as the creator of the show to be a consultant, to make sure that everything stays consistent. Otherwise, it's a transparent cash grab.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see it, but I doubt it.
Douglas Love, if you're listening, my name is Daniel Berto. I'm 5'3", around the same height as Vivian. So if you need someone to, be the counterpart to Vivian on the remake of Out of the Box, my email is
I'll
theboxcutterpodcast@gmail.com.
have H people call your people.
I mean, I've said this before and I'll say it again. My dream is to be just like Tony and Vivian and do a show just like Out of the Box. We're 2 years away from the 25th
Let's
anniversary.
do it. Yeah.
You know, just go, have Douglas Love and go to the people at Disney and say, remakes are in trend right now, and DIY is such a hot thing. Out of the Box
Yeah.
it's a perfect opportunity to bring back Out of the Box.
Yeah. And I guess one of the things I want to say is why I chose this episode,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of reasons for this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Here's a little fun fact. I
Okay.
think it was regular cast member Nicholas Ng's first episode that he shot
Mm.
for the show.
Okay.
That's a little tidbit for whenever you talk to Nick.
Mm-hmm.
He'll tell you stories about that. And also written by Douglas too. It's like it sets the tone for the show.
It is a good first episode for people to watch.
Yeah. And I feel like for years
Mm-hmm.
the order of when it aired was so weird. I'm talking pre-Disney Plus, obviously, before we...
Yeah.
Because a lot of people thought Feet First was the first episode, but the first episode that aired was Siege of Imagination.
That was the debut episode, but when you go back on the like the production order and the publication history, it said that Feet First was the
Yeah,
first
like,
one, which is so weird. But my thing with the whole production order, like the reason why I'm fine with it being all mixed up is because I feel like
no,
otherwise.
but production order and airing order don't
Right.
always match up.
Sorry, what I meant to say was airing order because I feel like then it would give away who got replaced versus just a whole cast of people.
Well, no, yeah.
So I'd rather it be mixed up than people like than people be like, oh, they replaced this person, oh, they replaced this person. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's so that way. I guess it was kind of smart of them because then it'd be like, oh, I don't want to watch the show anymore because my favorite person isn't on Out of the Box anymore, so I'm gonna stop watching. So it was. I guess it was either it was accidental or it was on purpose. Either way, it was a lot smarter them to have the order mixed up. Today's episode we're talking about today is Hats Off. The episode starts with Tony just coming into the clubhouse holding a pot, and he explains that he was adding it to his collection, but he got caught in the rain and had to use it as a hat. And he starts patting on it, showing the viewer like how the rain sounded on the pot. It was very ASMR. I'll say that much.
What? I never thought of it like that.
How do you not? You like.
Yes.
It was very ASMR with the whole. I'm just like, I see it.
Yes.
This show, like I said, could be brought back. So then Vivian hurries in with Dane, Cece, and Nick trying to get out of the rain, and Tony then jokes about about Vivian's newspaper hat because she didn't expect it to rain. And this is one of the few times you see Vivian kind of like not smile, is the word. Because he's like, oh, nice hat, Vivian. And then for a second you see her like frown and then turn it around.
I love his delivery on that line. Like, it's sarcastic, yet it's just like, great.
Mm-hmm.
He's throwing shade.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so she has a frown and then turns it around and just explains how she wasn't expecting it to rain. And adding that Tony's pot would make a better hat than her newspaper. I wonder what she was going to use that newspaper for, though, is the question.
Oh, yeah, well, she might need to make newspaper trees again or something. Who knows?
Maybe. So then he notes how the rain sounded on the pot to all the kids.
I always liked how he equated percussion with, like, nature sounds.
Mm-hmm.
I always like how he drew the true parallels for the audience.
Right.
You ever notice that he does that a lot?
He then notes how the rain sounded on the pot and how Dane's hat, which is a cute little yellow rain hat, a Georgie hat, as they call it, is more ideal for the rain.
I've never seen anybody wear a hat like that when it rains. Shane?
It's like those yellow fisherman-looking things.
I know, but like, really? Like, I know, but I'm like, wow.
Probably got it at Kmart. Tony is talking about Dane's Georgie hat, if you get the reference. Dane then notes how the rain sounded on his rain hat by patting his thighs, and then everyone starts to join in. And this is where Vivian says for us to join in and tells us how to do it by patting our thighs really fast. And so they're pretending like, oh, now let's pretend it's a storm. Oh, now let's pretend like it's a flood. Let's pretend like it's the end of the world.
All of that stuff, all of that, like, interactive stuff, I have to give credit where credit is due
Mm-hmm.
to Sharon Carlson, the talent coach
Mm-hmm.
for the Kids.
Mm-hmm.
She really gave the Kids a good a good roadmap to where it was natural, but it was also acting.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't even tell that was dialogue. Like
Right.
she made it. It came out of the Kids so
Mm-hmm.
naturally. Props to her.
Well, I will try and get her on one of these days, and I will get
I
her on.
can't even do that shit. Good luck.
Well, I got Brandon on, so 1-0.
Yep. All right.
When I get her on, I'll say, "Oh, have you met my friend Bob?"
Oh, thank you. I love it.
So they're like, "Oh, now let's pretend like it's raining harder. Now let's pretend like it's a storm. Oh my gosh, it's a flood. Oh my gosh." Well, not that far, but they were at that point pretty much. So after pretending, the rain stops outside, and Cece and Nick take off their hats. But Dane decides to keep his hat on to show off,
Savage.
to show off how it can also keep the sun out of his eyes, along with the rain. Then everyone starts to talk about and mention other types of hats, like beanies, so that way you're not cold, or helmets to make sure your brain doesn't splatter on the pavement.
It's music time.
The song is called Witch Hat, and the song is set
I
to the
have
beat.
a fun fact about this one.
Alright then, shoot.
This song was written by Tony Award-winning composer David Yazbek. He
Really?
did he he did a bunch of like Broadway musicals, and he actually wrote the theme song for Where in the World Is Carmen Sandiego. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and he just started writing music for Box too, and this is one of his best ones.
Yeah, I mean, it's set to the beat of Shoe Fly, you know, and it's a little slow, but it's catchy, and it teaches about different types of hats and what their use is. Like, oh, this hat, yeah, if it's sunny outside, this hat with the wide brim will, protect you from the sun. Or if it's cold, this hat will protect you from the cold, or things like that. And it was silly. It was cute.
It's wholesome. I love it.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just spoiled by other episodes.
Yeah.
Cause like you got Box Beat, you've got If I Could Fly, if you got Seeds Need. You
Yeah. Well, this again, they were really finding their footing.
okay, fair enough. Like I said, maybe I'm just spoiled because
Yeah, you are. There are a lot of great songs coming up too.
right. I mean, it's not a bad song, but I just expect the format to be music, arts and crafts, music, story. And the second music time to be the slow song, not the first one. But it overall though, I think it was a pretty catchy song, very silly, very fun, and at the end of it all, everyone is piling and assaulting Nick with all these hats, piling them on top of him, and he's just holding on for dear life for the hat on top of his head. And then you see a shot of Dane like throwing it like at him. I'm like, damn, Dane, what's your problem? You hate Nick or something?
You just metal.
Just kidding. He and Alicia were the three musketeers.
Yeah,
Is what
they were the first three I met.
So yeah, they were like this
Yeah.
when they doing the show. And Alicia and Dane's moms still, talk every now and again, is what he told me in the interview.
Yeah.
So it's good to
It's all a family vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Douglas really set the tone for like you know how most television sets
Mm-hmm.
have like cat like food and craft services.
Mm-hmm.
Douglas made sure that it was all healthy food. There were no candy.
Mm-hmm.
And like it was somebody's birthday, they would always bring a cake.
Mm-hmm.
So he really wanted to make it seem like they were all taken care of
Right.
on set.
Well, I mean, healthier food options such as fruit and vegetables and healthier meal options do result in a more positive behavior from people and a better, and a more efficient work ethic and performance from people.
But he did say, he said, but when the kids were away, we went in the snack closet, we got our candy, and so it's like, that we can mix your bowls.
Mm. Well, I mean, you don't want the kids hyped up on sugar. Oh, trust me.
Yeah, they would have the snacks at the end of the shoot.
Mm. So, the kids, after singing the song, the kids want to try on more hats. And then Vivian remembered that she had the picture book of two
Okay, now
people.
I
Mm-hmm.
want to say something about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I never asked Douglas this. So Douglas, if you're listening, answer this for me, please.
And
Why
Douglas, if
was
you're listening, my
why
Gmail
was
is theboxcutterpodcast@gmail.com.
yeah? Gotta do the bit. Say it again, just for good measure.
Yes. Douglas Love, don't forget, my Gmail is theboxcutterpodcast@gmail.com.
Yes. Why was the picture segment removed? Like the whole jumping into the picture bit, like that.
Really? Because I thought they did it in season 2 as well.
No, no.
Really? Because you see Van Gogh and other things in season 2. So how did they do that then?
Maybe it was season 3. Maybe no,
It,
season
I'm
3. Sorry.
I'm pretty sure it was season 3 you're thinking of because I know in season 3 they talk to the people in the picture. They don't jump into it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so after singing their song, the kids want to try on more hats, and Vivian remembers that she had a picture book of
I
two
love this
baseball players.
segment. I
Mm-hmm.
love this one. This is one of the other reasons why I wanted to do it, just so I could talk about this segment.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so she gets a picture book with two baseball players wearing silly hats while playing baseball, and while looking through the book of the two baseball players named Flip and Flop, the kids decide that they want to help Flip and Flop find proper hats for their baseball game.
Let's jump into the picture and see what we can see. It's time to go exploring.
Jump on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, jump!
So the kids jump into the picture and they're in this baseball diamond, and they see Flip and Flop trying to practice their, pitching and hitting, but they keep messing up because they're wearing the wrong hats. And the kids are quick to correct them, saying, "Those aren't baseball hats."
My
Mm-hmm.
favorite, I don't know where it is, but the guy goes, "Of course it's a hat."
It's before the song.
That kills me.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're made to be silly, and they're one of the better picture characters, I'll say.
I love that.
Because Dr. Needleweedle wasn't necessarily my favorite. She was not the worst. The butterfly was pretty funny, because it was like this guy with like this smoker's voice of like, "Yeah, one time I used to be a caterpillar, and then I wake up in this bag."
Yeah, what was really good about those picture segments is that, they were in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So they had access to all of these wacky Broadway character actors
Mm-hmm.
that you wouldn't otherwise get.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a plus side.
So Flip and Flop break out in a song,
It's music time.
and the song is called "The Perfect Hat," and it's really silly, and it's and I
Very
like,
Broadway style.
yeah, and it's catchy and it's repetitive, and I appreciate like the creativity of finding purposes for different hats. Like, oh, this wedding veil. Oh, it helps to, prevent mosquito bites. Or, this hard construction helmet will protect my head. So I like that even though they were like silly hats, the two characters gave them purpose aside from what they're originally intended for.
Yeah. It can real cool. It can real like, I don't want to say cute, but it's like a real quirky song, and I love it.
It is definitely quirky. And so they go through this whole bin of hats, and they eventually find some baseball hats. And so everyone puts on their baseball hats, and they tense up as they wait for the moment of truth to see if Flip and Flop will finally score a hit. And they do. So, mission accomplished. Vivian and the kids get back and are happy to tell Tony that they helped Flip and Flop. Tony then shows everyone the hat he made while they were gone.
It's arts and crafts time.
So the segment is Silly Hats. That's how I titled it, Silly Hats. So we have a construction paper cone hat that Dane made. All you do is get a construction paper and you roll it into a cylindrical cone and you tape it. And you draw and you put stickers on it and you got a withered hat. Then we have Nick's colander hat. This one I have a problem with. Number one, he's putting these plastic flowers in the colander holes. And if you know anything about flower arrangement, growing up my mom she still does flower arrangements. The plastic ones have really pointy tips at the end, so I can just imagine it being super uncomfortable wearing a hat like that. It's a safety concern in my eyes. And along with that, he puts pipe cleaners, basically wires covered with fuzz, in the colander too. So basically, he's wearing a hat with like needle tips on it. Sometimes I question the safety, if safety was even considered for some of these segments.
Well, let me just tell you that I don't know. I forget if Dane brought this up, but they would practice the arts and crafts segment like a day or two before to show nothing happened.
Right. But it's just when you have a kid at home seeing these things,
Yeah.
kids are very impressionable and they want to copy those that they admire. So if if you have a kid that likes Nicholas and they see that he's putting all these things in, pipe cleaners and plastic flowers in a colander and they try and do it, they're going to get poked in the hand and their head and all that, and that's an issue. That's a liability issue.
Yeah.
So that's the one hat that I have a problem with. I think what they could have done was maybe they could have used the pipe cleaners, but they could have, threaded it through one hole and out of the other and then twisted it. So, but beyond the colander hat, we also get a paper headband that Cece makes. So she gets a construction paper and she, loops it and tapes it. And then she tapes flowers and pipe cleaners and and then we have Vivian who makes the cardboard crown. So she does the same thing as Cece, takes the cardboard with the little wavy grooves on it. And then she sticks pencils or paintbrushes in the little holes that the grooves are making. And then, yeah. But overall, I feel like this was a very practical, one of the more practical crafts. All you need is paper and tape and that's it. And, but also I like that they show multiple ways of making a hat.
Yeah, and most of the episodes, I think,
Mm-hmm.
were written to coincide with the craft.
Mm-hmm.
How can we translate this topic that we're doing an episode on
Mm-hmm.
into a craft?
Right.
Like,
Okay.
later in the show,
Mm-hmm.
in like season 3, I'm
Mm-hmm.
using this one as an example because it's an odd one. They did an episode about Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
And the craft on that one is making Lincoln's hat and his beard.
Mm.
So it's finding how the craft and the topic at hand correlate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really cool.
After they make their hats, everyone shows off their hats. You know, Dane saying, I'm a wizard. And, you know, Nick being like, I'm a gardener. And Vivian talking about how she's like, they say she's a princess because she has a crown. And then Cece, I'm like, well, what's your hat? She's like, it's a chicken hat. And she proclaimed that she is Chicken Little.
It's story time.
So the story is the story of Chicken Little. And I wasn't too familiar with the story of Chicken Little growing up. It was more up until I was like maybe in like 4th grade or 5th grade that I saw the Disney movie Chicken Little.
I like that movie. A lot of people don't like it.
It's a very, I'm not going to say it's a bad movie. I personally, I like it. I have no problem with Chicken Little, except for how toxic everyone in that isn't a main cast character is in that movie. But beyond that, so the whole story of Chicken Little is, well, one day something falls on Chicken Little's head, and so he starts going crazy because, well, they think that the sky is falling. So in this story, though, there is a wizard, a gardener, an elf, and a princess. So similar to that, instead of something just falling on Chicken Little's head, it's Dane, the wizard lizard, who starts to mess with Chicken Little by throwing something on her head. So Chicken Little then runs to the gardener to see if the gardener, played by Nick, gardener partner, could help her figure out how to fix this. So she goes to him, and he gets struck by something on his head. So they both start to panic. And what do? They go to their friend Elfie Welfie, played by Tony. And Elfie Welfie, is laughing at the fact that they say that the sky is falling. And guess what? He gets struck by something too. So they all go to the princess, played by Vivian. And the princess points out, well, were you guys wearing your hats when you got hit on the head? And they're like, no. So, yeah, it was. I felt very confused at the resolution of it because, there's no real ending to it other than, oh, Chicken Little, thank you for being so brave and telling everyone that the sky is falling. And B, Withered Lizard is still out there, messing with people. What's he gonna do next? Smite them with lightning? It's unresolved. I don't know. I feel like maybe if the princess addressed, we'll have you try talking to Withered Lizard. And they went to go confront Withered Lizard, and he apologized for his behavior. Then, if Chicken Little got, rewarded for being so brave, then that would make more sense. But they didn't do that.
No.
Withered Lizard got away with his crimes, and he will continue to smite another day. Once they finish playing, the kids ask if they can take their hats home while Vivian escorts them home. And I don't know why kids think they always have to ask if they make something, you don't really have to ask to take it home. But I don't know. I never got that. Mm-hmm.
They don't generally take it home. Like the kids don't take it home from set unless it's like a special thing.
Well, I mean, like in general for like just kids, because like I work with kids, as you know, as everybody
No, but I was
knows.
just saying.
Yeah.
everybody think, oh, they probably took. No, they didn't.
Oh yeah, it totally seemed like it. Like the outfits they wore, they didn't bring that from home, um, and a lot of what they made seemed like they didn't take it home. Maybe things like the sticky capes and the hats that they made, they probably took home. But other things like the animal noses, I don't think they took those home, or the tube suits. I'm not sure though. So yeah, so while Vivian is taking the kids home, Tony asks if we, the viewer, have a favorite hat. And if we don't, then he suggests that we make a hat like Dane's wizard hat or Cece's chicken hat. And maybe it might provide some special powers or turn us into Chicken Little. And that was Hats Off. So, who would you say is your standout character in this episode?
I would say like Dane.
Would you
Dane
like?
gets a lot of like good stuff in this.
Mm-hmm.
Second to Nick, I think.
I would say my standout kid in this episode would have to be. I would say Dane also, because Dane seemed like the big focus in this episode. And what's interesting is that for for the first half of my podcast, he was just in the background a lot of the time. But in the last 3 episodes that I've talked about, he's in the forefront. So my opinions of him have changed, just like my opinions of Brandon have changed. They definitely have a lot more to offer than what's on the surface, is what I have to say.
Yeah.
All right, then let's get to our verdict then. So the theme of hats, learning about different types of hats. I feel that it was presented, but I feel like it could have been presented just a bit more. If you catch my drift, like
in what way?
In the first half of the episode, they talk about, oh, this hat is to keep you warm. This hat keeps the rain out of your face. But then when we get to the last part of the episode, that gets thrown out the window. After they finish jumping out of the picture, all of that gets kind of thrown out the window of like the functionality of hats. I just wish like it kind of carried over, I guess.
But that's a very subtle thing, though.
Mm-hmm. But hats overall, as a theme for kids, I feel it would. I'd say I want to say it holds up, but I kind of feel it wouldn't because kids don't really think about hats. Like little kids don't really think about hats. They just put on whatever their parents tell them to put on.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I'd say it doesn't hold up. But I feel like as something kids learn about, I want to say it holds up, but I can't.
I totally understand that.
The music then. The music, I'd say, is one of the highlights of this episode. It's fun, it's catchy, a little slow. So, but beyond that, I feel like they're fun, they're silly, they're engaging, they're repetitive, and I feel like it definitely holds up.
Yeah.
The arts and crafts, I'd say, even with the hiccup of Nicholas's colander hat, I'd say that it's still a timeless craft that can still be done, in this time. It's just construction paper and tape. And that's it. So I'd say the arts and craft, besides the colander, still holds up.
Yeah, I think so too.
And the story then, the story of Chicken Little. I feel that they gave it plenty of time, and yet they still weren't able to give a proper ending. Do I feel like it would entertain young kids? Yes. Do I feel it's a good story? No, because it's not complete. But do I feel like it would hold up if a kid were to watch it? Yes.
I'm sure that there were tons of like, I can't confirm this,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm sure that there were tons of discussions in the writer's room. Okay, when do we, cut this?
Mm-hmm. And the overall acting of everyone in this episode, I'd say it's a pretty good episode in terms of like the performance. Normally, almost every episode so far that I've reviewed, the acting has been really good. I mean, Douglas Love, for the most part, and the casting director did a really good job for season one in terms of casting.
Yeah, for sure.
So then, overall, hats off, still holds up. So, Bob, I had the best time talking with you right now, even though some of our opinions were different. That's the best part of talking, is that, you get to learn about someone else's point of view, and, you learn something new. If we all like the same thing, there's nothing new to learn about. So I appreciate you coming on the show. Is there any last thoughts or anything you'd like to plug?
Well, I want to say thank you for letting me come on. I mean, I asked, but you didn't have to say yes. But I'm such a big fan of the pod because it's the one place where, other than me, people are really talking about this in a broader scope. And I appreciate it.
And where can everyone listen to the DJ Bob Show?
Simply djbobshow.com. We're on Spotify and other places as well. We're kind of working on that currently, but we'll be back up in more places soon.
Make sure to leave a comment if you like what you hear. Why not subscribe? I'm on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, YouTube, and now Spotify. At the Box Cutter Podcast, send all suggestions and feedback to the Box Cutter Podcast at gmail.com, because it takes a village to raise something beautiful. In the words of Tony and Vivian, so long, farewell, until we meet again.